Okay. Uh, we'll move on to the discussion part. Last month we were discussing a few questions, right? And I was told there were a few questions regarding Amma's teaching. So Arun Kaiva, Param, they all kind of compiled two or three questions together, specifically regarding Amma's teachings. So I think the three questions, we have bhajans after the discussion. It's only for 10 minutes, and then we'll have bhajans. Someone's messaged on the chat. So the question is, could we summarize Amma's teachings in a few lines? How would you describe Amma's teachings? And what is the greatest lesson you have learned in Amma's presence? In Amma's teachings, to be honest, there is a series of 9 books, which is kind of incomplete. To be practical, they call Awakened Children. Most of you would have read at least some part of it. So Amma's teachings is a huge collection of pearls that Amma has shared. Especially Awakened Children kind of records the olden times wherein Amma spontaneously spoke with people around her. And so if you really go into Amma's teachings, it can go on and on and on, because it touches upon various topics, it touches upon various thoughts. So I thought I'll focus on one or two things which I am personally inspired by Amma's presence, Amma's way of doing things in different situations, etc. So, I feel when you ask about Amma's teachings or what is Amma's message, I feel Amma's life is Amma's message. She's perhaps one of the most inspiring people I've seen who just walks the talk, or rather just walks, doesn't talk much. Um, Amma is very simple by nature. She doesn't, have all these complicated teachings from the scriptures or in any other form, from science, from technology. She just is very simple the way she is, and that simplicity is Amma's message. So I feel what is most inspiring for me is Amma's life itself, the way she is, the way she conducts herself in different situations, is the biggest or the inspiring teaching for me. I remember you may have heard me give this example, but I think it's still worth in case anyone of you hasn't heard this. In the early 90s, I was quite young then, about 10, 11. I remember Times of India, one of the most popular dailies in India, newspaper in India. It had an article about Amma, and Times of India basically mentioned how look at this person who has come from this rural village in Kerala, and look at how she has influenced the world and the following she has. They were more in terms of Amma being a successful individual, and look at where she began and where she is. That was the article basically. And they talked about all the various kind of barriers that they could think of that Amma has overcome or Amma has faced and overcome. So they were talking about financial barrier. Amma was born in a small fishermen community village, a poor village in Kerala. So not that she had a big amount of financial support that she could start this whole movement, which kind of involves and influences millions around the world today. So she didn't have that. So she definitely had financial barrier. And then the newspaper talked about gender barrier. Being a woman in the mid 1900s in a rural village in India, especially the state of Kerala, you can't just start a huge initiative on your own. It definitely was a big barrier being a woman back then. It has changed a big lot now, thanks to people like Amma who have changed, brought in that change. So that also was a barrier, gender barrier, educational barrier. Amma is a fifth grade dropout. Amma has completed only until fourth grade completely. So, educational barrier, and then language barrier. Amma speaks only her mother tongue. Of course, many of us have experience wherein Amma speaks our mother tongue or speaks to us in the language that we know, but otherwise, Amma mainly speaks Malayalam, and that's the only language she speaks. And more importantly, she speaks the language of love, which kind of pulls people towards her. But otherwise, verbally, she speaks only one language. So, language barrier. And then there is caste barrier. Yeah, Amma, especially being a spiritual and humanitarian leader, she didn't have either the backing of being in a higher caste, so-called higher caste. Um, you know, do we really need to talk about caste in today's world? Probably not. But back then, being a woman, being from the lower caste, being from a financially backward community, definitely wasn't the best environment for you to start or to venture into an initiative wherein you're trying to change the world. And the kind of impact that Amma has created in spite of all these barriers is one of the most inspirational thing for me. So it's a message of what? It's a message of determination. Not that Amma did not have challenges at all. Right from her own mom, her own dad, her own brother, her own family members, her neighbors, her villagers, they all thought she was crazy in terms of trying to start this whole movement of bringing a positive change. Right from your own mom and dad, they thought she was crazy. They thought she's someone who's completely lost her senses, and they were trying to do things in a very naive way to stop her from doing so. Are you able to hear me? Okay. Because my phone is ringing and the camera is on the phone.
Yeah, we can hear you, but there is a vibration. We hear the phone ringing.
Oh, okay. Let me.
I think you can just press the down button. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So, she had challenges every stage, and in spite of that, she probably set the message of determination for us. And it's not just determination. When you're determined that you want to move forward and achieve something, it should be coupled with courage and strength. As you face challenging situations, you need to develop the attitude of courage. That I will face. I'll not bog down. I'll not give up. I'll not give in. I'll keep going. And you show courage and you show strength. That doesn't mean you'll always succeed. Sometimes things just completely wouldn't go the way you want it to go. So along with that, you also need patience, and that's something Amma has very well shown. All the major projects that Amma has initiated, the whole embracing the world, was more or less around the late 90s. Amma started the whole movement back in the 70s, and actually the recognition, people, news media, all of them, they started recognizing it only in the late 90s when the AIMS hospital began, and the Gujarat earthquake relief began. That's when things actually came. So she was not like, people are not recognizing me, there are only few people coming and meeting me, following me, or praising me. None of those mattered. So patience was a big thing, and along with determination, perseverance. That's something Amma always had, irrespective of whether people recognize it or not. My motive is to help the world, and I'll do it the best way I can. So I feel so. Amma's whole life is a message of determination, courage, strength, patience, and perseverance. And probably all this is based on the principle of walk the talk, like I mentioned, or rather seldom talk and walk as much as you can. Think of organizations. We can say organization like Amma's. We can say a lot of things that Amma has done is through her volunteers. The volunteers are the one who go and do all this service. How can Amma get all the credit for that? Because I feel the biggest inspiration for all of us as volunteers is Amma herself toiling, doing whatever she can every moment of her life. Amma's darshan is the simplest example. Um, Embracing the world, the whole organization is based on that very simple gesture of embracing people. Think of someone who sits 15, 16, 17 hours every day just completely giving herself up for others. When I say giving herself up, giving up food, giving up sleep, giving up rest, giving up even nature's call. And Amma is growing older and older. Physically, none of them matter. She just gives herself as much as she can to others. So in terms of toiling, in terms of putting yourself in, putting in effort, she's probably the best example amongst all the volunteers in embracing the world. So walking the talk is again one of the biggest message, and the most inspiring for me of all these is Amma's simplicity and humility. You do all this, you have achieved a lot of things through the process, but Amma is still what she is. Amma is still humble the way she was 50, 60 years ago. She's just still, as Amma says, I'm still the crazy old girl or the crazy woman as I was before. For example, recently we had the G20 presidency taken up by India. So G20 is a huge intergovernmental forum, right? It comprises of 85% of the world GDP and 75% of the world trade, almost 2/3 of the world population. It's a huge entity. And of this G20, there are official engagement groups, and Amma was made the chair of the C20, which is civil society, representatives of civil society, and Amma was made the chair of the civil society representatives. So when Amma was given the C20 chairmanship, and as she was accepting it, and in her acceptance speech, when the whole event happened under the auspice of Government of India, rather than she's achieved a lot in her life, including many honorary doctorates from different universities. And in spite of all this, when Amma said Amma humbly accepts this position, Amma says, Amma is very inspired and humbled that you have chosen a 5th grade dropout to take up this position. So she had the guts to say she's a 5th grade dropout in that platform. You get this world platform, you'll try to boost yourself as much as you can or promote yourself as much as you can. She's like, I'm too simple for all this, but since you have given it to me, I'll definitely live up to it. And she we can discuss about it some other day. Amma has kind of transformed the way C20 works from the previous years that we have had from different countries. This C20 that we have this year is completely a transformed approach, has a transformed approach. It's not about just discussing things and proposing recommendations to the world leaders. Rather, there are a lot of projects that have taken shape, and there is implementation as part of the C20 rather than just recommendation. So it's moved from recommendation and discussions to implementation and doing things. So again, she's as humble and simple, as down to earth as she is, but her walking is as her whole stature as the chair of the C20 is very tall. So the lower she is, the tall she is. It's like the story of 3 people discussing about their gurus. So one person says, my guru is so special and so awesome and great that my guru can go without water for 100 days. And the second person says, that's all, my guru is even better. My guru can go without food for 100 days, not just water, he'll have no food for 100 days. That's the greatness of my guru. The third person says, my guru is much greater than both of you. Whenever my guru is hungry, he'll have food. Whenever he's thirsty, he'll drink water. That's the greatness of my guru. And I feel Amma's message is that be simple in life. Don't try to promote or project yourself than what you're not. Just be yourself and be happy that you are yourself. We all have something big and great in us, and just be happy with that. Use that potential and move forward. I feel that's the biggest message: simplicity and humility. Be simple, be humble, the way you are. We don't want to project ourselves as someone who we are not. That's the biggest message that Amma has. The term we use for people who do something out of the box, we call them extraordinary. The term is very interesting, right? It's still extraordinary. It's all the more ordinary than otherwise. That's why we call it extraordinary. It's still ordinary. So be ordinary is Amma's message. In spite of all these achievements, all the first few qualities that I mentioned or messages that I mentioned, Amma's biggest message is be simple and humble. Be extraordinary. Be extraordinary. Extra in double quotes, ordinary. We think about all this in terms of even high level spiritual thoughts, Advaita, Siddhanta, Advaita, etc. They all talk about this in high level terms. This is the last point, and then we'll end. They all talk about this in high level terms. They basically say, ask us to take the approach of neti, neti, na iti. Not this, not this. I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. The whole process of spiritual growth is to understand I am none of these that I am trying to project myself as. And I feel that is the biggest message of Amma's life. She is the way she is. She dresses the way she dressed 40, 50 years ago. She speaks the same language, the same way that she spoke 40, 50 years ago. She gives the same kind of darshan that she did 40, 50 years ago. She's not changed at all. She's just as simple as she used to be before. And in her own words, she's as illiterate as she used to be before. And with that, she has created this whole huge transformation around the world. And all of us are part of that, that movement that Amma has created. So, biggest message of all, stay simple, stay humble, stay extra, in double quotes, ordinary. So that's my biggest inspiration from Amma. I don't know how much I'm able to live up to it, but at least trying to. Is that okay?
That was excellent. Thank you so much.